If you are a fan of softball, you are going to love the Fastpitch TV show. From softballjunk.com, we're bringing you more softball than anyone on the planet. Sit back and get ready. Here's the Fastpitch TV show.
Hello, I'm Gary Leland, and this is the Fastpitch TV show. Make sure and take a look at all my videos, blogs, and other softball information on my website at www.fastpitch.tv. Now, the Fastpitch TV website is bringing you more free softball information than any place else on the planet. And today I bring you episode 11 in the history of softball. Now, I'm working with Fastpitch softball legend Dr. Richardson and Alison Strange of PFX Athletics to film a series of interviews between Richardson and other softball legends. You are going to be amazed at some of the softball greats that are joining us on this series of shows. Now, in this episode, Richardson interviews legendary coach and softball great Carol Hutchins. This is another great interview in this series. Now, let's go to the show right after this short message.
Oops, sorry. I was reading this month's issue of the Fastpitch magazine. What? You're not familiar with the Fastpitch magazine? Watch this. You are going to love it. Looks great, right? Want to find more about the #1 coaching tool on the internet? Go to fastpitchmagazine.com today.
Hey, you are joining us in the beginning of our conversation with the one and only Carol Hutchins. Listen, look at this. Filling her bucket. An NFCA, National Fast Pitch Coaching Association Hall of Fame. So much even more than that. She is affectionately and respectfully referred to as Hutch. So let's keep talking about this history of the game. You transcend so much. You call yourself the Title IX baby, if you would. Title IX boomer. And as that boomer, talk about when you were younger and keep the conversation going about what was it like as a young girl, opportunities you had or did not have, and let's just go from there.
Well, I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, and I played on the playgrounds and played with my brothers. And then as we all grew up, my brothers got to go get on all these teams, summer ball teams, and they got to play in the middle school. They were on the wrestling teams and the football teams and basketball teams. And I didn't have as many places to play because we didn't have girls basketball. We didn't have girls softball. I was a cheerleader at that time. And I'd stay after school, and we had like girls athletic events, they called them, and kind of like a club thing, and we get to stay after maybe play basketball. But I didn't get to be on teams, and I watched my brothers do it, and I thought, well, that's all I ever wanted to be. I wanted to play on a sport team too. I didn't want to be a cheerleader, but that was the only way I could do anything. So I went and cheered for them. Mm-hmm.
When did you get your chance?
It wasn't until my well, I would have to say when I got involved in competitive softball, there were some competitive women's teams, and in town in Lansing, Michigan, was a team called the Lansing Laurels, which was considered a semi-professional. And they would draw 3,000 people at some of their home games, especially when your teams came to town. And I tried out for their farm team and made the team. And it was structured. We had a schedule. We had uniforms. And I played all that summer, and then I got called up to the big leagues and spent, I don't know how many years I played for them, actually 7-8 years with the Laurels. And I was playing competitive summer softball while in high school I was cheerleading and still playing club basketball and club this and that. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school they actually started having varsity teams and high school state tournaments for the girls sports. And I played basketball, and that was really my first opportunity to be on a high school varsity team.
Do you remember when the national championship for the ASA women's majors was hosted in Lansing? Do you remember that year?
Yeah, I think it was like 1980s, 80 or 81.
My first memory of Hutch was in that uniform, white and green, correct?
Correct?
Lansing Laurels. There she was at shortstop, and as a shortstop myself, always recognized talent, but particularly shortstops. One of the greatest in the game. Just as we share your story to now where you are, the head coach, head softball coach at the University of Michigan, you really have stayed true to Michigan. And just talk about when you finally got that opportunity to play, you mentioned in high school, and take it from there of how you got to the coaching ranks.
Well, I went to college at Michigan State in my backyard, and same thing. I wanted to be an athlete, and I was a two-sport athlete. I was a basketball player, and I went to the same high school as Irvin Johnson. And I talk about the lack of parallel in our careers. He was a full scholarship athlete. You know, they had everything, all the facilities at Michigan State, and they of course traveled by charter buses and planes. And the girls, we were just happy to get to play. And we had a schedule, and we'd get in cars, and our coaches would drive us to other states to play at Western Illinois and at all those kind of places. And we didn't complain about it because we were happy. I was just thrilled to get to be on a real team with real coaching and get a chance to do what I love to do. And we did that in both basketball and softball. And I knew at that point that I would want to be a college coach. The minute I got to college, I wanted to coach. And more than anything, I was so impacted by the women who had coached me. I had three really significant coaches in my life. My summer softball coach, Kate Purvis, my high school basketball coach, Ann Johnson, and then my college basketball coach, Karen Langland. You know, and I wanted to be them because they made such impact on us and pushed us and to be the best we could be. And it wasn't really, as obviously you realize, it's not really about the sport. It's about just being the best you can be. And that the impact they made in my life and their role modeling is why I do what I do. And I got the opportunity after college to go to grad school, work for Gail Blevins, who went on to become as legendary as there is, one of the best coaches to ever coach any sport. I'm certain of it. One of our great teachers, one of the best role models, and she was instantly and has always been my mentor and helped steer me in the right direction. But I had people to be like. I had people to role model myself after as I found my own coaching self. But so I got the opportunity to go to Michigan as an assistant coach. And I thought, well, that'd be awesome. And I wasn't caught up in Michigan State or Michigan. It was a chance to do what I love to do. And I was the assistant for 2 years and got a chance to be the head coach at a very young age and had to really cut my teeth in that position. But I evolved with the position because in the 80s, I mean, we didn't have equality. We didn't have equal facilities. I would watch the baseball team, and basically they were minor league. They would have summer uniforms, and we didn't even have practice uniforms. And, you know, they had 5 guys lining and fixing their field before games, and I'd be out there covered in dirt and, you know, white lime. And, you know, it was quite different. We were treated very differently. And it was a case where they wanted the men to have this opportunity, and the women, you're just lucky to have it. And so that just continued to evolve over my career. That was the time frame that I came into, and we certainly had a lot of growing pains along the way.
Now, like myself, you were in that transition of the AIAW, the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women, to the transition of the NCAA. Do you remember that time period? And was there any apprehension, or was it excitement?
Well, my very first year in college at Michigan State, we won the College World Series. Michigan State was the first team east of the Mississippi to win the College World Series. And it was AIW, and it was in Omaha, Nebraska. And so it was right after I graduated. There was a lot of push and pull going on, which I, of course, being a youngster, didn't totally understand. We just knew that the NCAA wanted to take us over. And the sentiment then was that would be, there were some pluses to that, but the concern with that female leadership would diminish because the AIW is led by women. And it certainly has increased opportunity for women athletes. The NCAA has been nothing but a plus for college athletics for women. But it's interesting because it has the female leadership has been a inverse effect, as you see fewer and fewer. The percentage of women in coaching, the percentage of women in leadership positions. I mean, those are still issues that we are trying to, expand.
The first championship that you talked about, what do you think it took for Michigan State to win that championship?
Well, we had a great pitcher, Gloria Bexford, who willed us to win, and she just turned around to everybody and said, "We're going to win." And great leadership, especially in the circle. And we had a good team. We were the whole infield was Lansing Laurels, but we had all the right things. We had team chemistry. We had a group who really believed in us, and we believed in Michigan State. I mean, we loved our opportunity. We were very thankful for it, but we just really enjoyed each other, and we enjoyed the game. We played for the love of the game.
The legends, I'm going to name drop some of these. I'd like you to, when you go way back, just start naming some of those legends and what made them instrumental as competitors, coaches, and all that. You've mentioned a few, but there's more because, Hutch, your history.
Probably one of my greatest, I would have to say, the greatest competitor I ever got to watch, and I would go when we were at tournaments and leave my hotel and go walk over to the fields to watch her play was Margie Wright. And Margie played at that time for the Moline, I want to say they were the Windmills or something, and she's just a few years older than me. She was a pitcher shortstop, and I of course was a shortstop. And she was a competitor on the field, and she was a player, and she could hit, and she was fantastic. But I know, I look back and it's how she carried herself. And when she was on that field, she was the one you watched. And I don't know if I've ever told her, but that's who I wanted to be. I mean, she was my idol at that point in my life, which I was just really 16, 17 years old. You can't talk without talking about Joan Joyce, who she was the Lisa Fernandez of our era. And she was the pitcher for the Rebecca Spraycuts. When they would come to town, I'm telling you, Randy Park in Lansing, Michigan, we couldn't hold them. 3,000 people would come out. And again, what a competitor. You were awestruck to get a chance to bat against her, and we would celebrate if we fouled the ball off. And
that's how good she is.
She was that good. And again, she was one of those icons of the game. And as I evolved into becoming an older coach and get to know, I've had the privilege to get to know Joan Joyce and play golf with her and compete with Margie Wright. We played a little together when we were playing 35 and over ball. And it's I know how kids feel today when they appear awestruck, because I was one of those kids myself. Linda Wells, another great competitor who caught for Margie Wright often. And again, their presence, and we call that, in leadership training, command presence. But she'd walk in the room or she'd walk on the field and she would just take it over. Whether she was having a good day or bad day, who would ever know? Those are the kind of that's greatness. That's as people look at Derek Jeter. He didn't always have a good game or a bad game, but that's not what you noticed about him. And we had a lot of icons like that.
Do you know much about the first ever professional level in our sport, 1976? Do you know much about that? And if so, what do you know about it?
Well, I recall it was right after I had gotten to Michigan State and played a year or so, and they developed this pro league, and one of our Lansing Laurels was Mary Nutter, who is another icon of our sport and a great player in our program, and she left to go play I think it was a team out of Detroit. I remember going to Detroit to
Hummers. Wasn't it the Hummers?
No, the Hummers was in St. Louis. That was Margie Wright's team and Linda's team, and no, she was with a different team.
Oh yeah,
but I did get to go watch them. It was exciting because wow, now you would get paid to play. You're talking from an era where none of the people I played ball with in college, basketball or softball, were on college scholarship. We didn't have scholarships. Women didn't get scholarships, and it was during my time at Michigan State that we started adding them. And I got I got $300 my sophomore year, total, $100 a term. And I called my mom and I said, hey, they're going to pay me. And she's like, well, we need more money than that. But I just thought it was awesome. I was so grateful. And full rides? No, nobody got full rides. They divvied up the little bit of money we got, and everybody got a little bit of money. And so now the professional league, to get back to it, was a new option and something to look forward to. And of course, the Olympics were unheard of at that point. So I personally was headed after my senior year to go play in Buffalo with Gloria Bexford. And we had worked that out. I don't know if I was drafted or how that worked, but it folded. I was all but packed up to go, and the league folded. And I had left the laurels to go do this. So that was devastating because I didn't play ball that summer, and I missed it. But I lost opportunity.
I was drafted as 15 with the Connecticut Falcons, which is where most of the Breakettes had gone.
Right.
Joan Joyce, Irene Shea, Sharon Backus, Snooki Mulder from the Rebels, and Stephanie Tenney, and I don't know if you recall Kathy Stillwell.
Yeah, I remember them all.
Remember them all?
Yep.
And the reason I hesitated was because they just started giving scholarships out in college.
Yeah.
And the other was the Olympic, the dream for me with the Olympics, and softball was not in the Olympics yet. Talk to me about, as a coach, how would you describe yourself? And how do you think your players describe yourself? And is yourself, as a coach, the impact of these players through your career, did they have a lot to do with it?
Well, I said this the other day. I had a chance to speak. We're here to impact and influence young people. And when I speak around the country and tell people what I do, I tell them I grow them up for a living. I grow people up, and you do it through the avenue of softball and the adversities they face and the challenges they face on a softball field, which in the scheme of life is really, it's just a learning experience. And you learn so much about yourself, and you grow and you stretch as a person when you're going through that. And that is what I do. But honestly, I have so many people in my life, the kids I've coached and all my former players and all these colleagues of mine. I have so many great friends in this association. They've impacted me more than I could have ever possibly impacted them. And they've helped me become the person I've become, whatever that is, hopefully for the better.
Well, Hutch has taken the University of Michigan softball program to amazing heights, but in 2005, the pinnacle, which had never been done before, is for a university east of the Mississippi to capture a national championship for the NCAA. What did it take, and what history was made at that moment?
Well, again, anybody knows that to really put it all together, it takes a lot of things coming together, and for us, we had great players, and I have a fantastic staff that is still intact, that has made my career, as I the one who gets all the accolades, but Bonnie Thole and Jen Brundage have absolutely made all of this happen. But we had talent, and we had kids who really came together and just believed that they could do it. And Jessie Merchant, my senior shortstop, all year long, we're going to win the national championship. And who was I to tell her, you're kidding, nobody's ever done it. That's not how we thought. A lot of people felt it did open up the door for the rest of the country to believe. To me, it was bound to happen. It's been evolving as college athletics for women has continued to evolve into really big business for the colleges, and bigger and better opportunities with television involved, and the fact that there's so many great institutions out there that really support the women in the areas that they need support in. And to me, it was just a matter of time. And I said when it happened that we may be the first team to do it, but I knew we wouldn't be the last, and I just hoped that we'd get another chance to do it again.
What's the biggest change you've seen in the history of our game from the travel ball side, but also collegiately? Do you think there's been one event or one moment that has caused the growth of it or impacted the most in change?
It's funny that you asked that, because the biggest change is probably the fact that back in the day there was just a few pockets in the country that were most competitive, and course, in Lansing, we wanted to be one of them, and we were. But now it's everywhere, and we recruit from everywhere. We don't. It's just not Southern California or not just Houston, Texas. There are kids everywhere playing very competitively, and I'm certain that the moment that changed all that was the 1996 Olympics. The opportunity to be on the biggest stage in the world and compete with the competitive people that we put on the field and that represent us so well in front of the entire world. And I was at the final game and sitting right behind the cameras, and I'm like, man, this is on TV. And being on TV again, the impact it's had, but it started in 1996 at that gold medal game.
I actually smile every time I watch the College World Series because I remember the first one, the championship game, UCLA versus Fresno State. Wendy Ward in the pitching circle for Fresno State, Margie Wright coaching them, and then UCLA with Sharon Backus and Sue Inquest, coaching, being on the field, and UCLA won in 1982. But what I remember the most in regards to the history was ESPN was there, and it seemed like there was one camera. I remember on the top of the open dugouts, they put plywood down and a table, and they had like one camera, maybe two. I might be exaggerating, but trust me. But when I saw you all going for that championship this past year, facing the University of Florida, and every year since, you look in the graphics and the number of TVs and the angles and the interviews with you on the headsets, and they're interviewing you, it is really a show. It's always been a show for a lot of us as athletes, ourselves and the fans, but now it's taken to so higher levels. Would you agree that college softball is really doing its part in impacting these young girls to drive them to our sport and enjoy it more because of that?
Well, I just think that the sport's always been great. And people say, what can we do to make the sport better? The sport's great. What we have now is visibility. And now you can grow up to want to be, as I say, Sierra Romero, or you want to be Jenny Ritter, or you want to be Sam Finley, and you can go on and on and on. And look what Jenny Finch has done for the game, but she's done it because of the visibility brought to her by that TV camera. Mm-hmm. And TV, we talked about it in these halls for years, what we could do to get TV. And when we got TV on board, I mean, we're flying. And Michigan softball has been on ESPN over 70 times in the last 10 years. That is enormous for the University of Michigan, and of course for our softball program, and the visibility that we have with it, and it has impacted our game tremendously.
But also Big Ten Network. I mean, you guys are on TV during your regular seasons now. What is that called? The viewership. Those numbers have really escalated so high, and you can tell because more games are on it.
Well, again, and you've got the Big Ten Network, you've got the Longhorn Network, you've got the SEC Network, you've got the Pac-12 Network. I can turn on during our season and watch college softball. Monday night is the ACC likes to have a Monday night game, and so you can watch softball. We tape all these games, and so people recognize this is an opportunity that I want for my young woman, my young child, whoever. Mm-hmm. So you're drawn to that, and you're going to be drawn to it when you can turn it on and think, wow, my kid could be on TV someday. And the power of TV is, I've just been amazed by it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you would know the difference more than a lot of us because of the recruiting process. Would you say the same athlete in the past is in the present, or is there a major difference? Is there any type of ingredients that is similar?
Well, I think we looked at the athletes today, and there were a lot of great athletes back in our day. And grit, passion, right? I mean, you would have ran through that wall to get that ball. I mean, you know the athlete you are. Well, I think where the game has evolved, you see kids who are a lot more specialized. They're bigger and stronger and faster than we were. We didn't have nearly the kind of training. We didn't have nearly the resources available to us with technology, back then. And so coaching was just like, hey, Hutch, get your butt down and move your feet. And now we just pull up all sorts of technology. But, again, in our era, we wanted to play. We were playing for the love of the game. And now a little bit of it's lost on the almighty, I want to get a college scholarship, and the shift in focus is not for the passion of the game. And kids may get into it for that, but at the youth levels, we're seeing kids. I'm having parents of 10-year-olds call me and say, what can we do to start getting recruited, and what should we be doing to get recruited? And I tell them, you should be growing up and having the time of your life, and you should play. And you should play, if you like other sports, you should play all of them. We have kids specializing when they're 12 years old in softball. And I mean, my greatest memories were on all the areas I got to play in, because I played every sport I could, as long as I could, and I didn't have nearly the opportunity. And I hate to see specialization is not necessarily a positive, because now we have kids playing 11 months a year, going through a little more flatlining. They have burnout issues. They have overuse injuries, and they're not playing for necessarily the right reasons. And we play for the passion of the game, and I think I'd like to see us go a little bit back to center on that.
Well, today is tomorrow's history. So as you look into the future, which will be eventually tomorrow's history, where do you see the game going, and where do you hope the direction it leads us?
Well, I could never have seen this. I'm going to tell you, when I walked on that field and when I was 16 years old and, got to put on my Rawlings glove, which I wore, I used the same glove for like 6 years.
Heart of the Hide, or
6 years, Heart of the Hide, heck yeah. And it was this big, too. I thought bigger, better. I didn't have to move my feet. We have reached really, are we at the pinnacle? No, because our game can continue to grow. We still continue to work with TV and try to make our game better and our sport better. And, of course, college is the epitome of that. We're hopeful that the Olympics comes back. To me, that needs to be the one area of focus. We need softball to be an Olympic sport for our sport and for our future. The kids today need to have that as a dream. And I think we'd all like to see the Pro League get over that hump and really flourish and become a real viable option. But you got to remember, and at Michigan, this is Team 39. This is the 39th team at the University of Michigan. Football is a team 137. Baseball's team 150. Wow. And, the Detroit Tigers have been playing since, I don't know when, 1800 and something. So it is an evolution. And we have been on a really fast track, and there's been a lot of ups and downs with that and growing pains. But this is an evolution, and we're not going to go away. And we want to do the things now to sustain us for that long haul.
Carol Hutchins, experiencing the evolution of women in sport and our sport of softball. Thanks, Hutch.
My pleasure.
You're awesome. You are a legend.
Thanks. My pleasure.
Welcome back. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure to come back and watch part 12 of softball history. Please tell your friends about the Fastpitch TV show and this series of softball history shows. Make sure and take a look at my website, www.fastpitch.tv, to keep up with all the episodes of this show. So until next time, this is your host, Gary Leland, saying goodbye, and thanks for watching.
Do you need a softball bat? Do you want to save $30? SoftballJunk.com is offering an additional $30 discount off the price of all non-sale softball bats on their website. That's right, $30. So the next time you buy a bat, go to SoftballJunk.com and enter the code FPTV30 during checkout. And wham! You just put a cool $30 in your pocket. This show is a member of the Fastpitch TV network. See all of our shows and blogs at www.fastpitch.tv